Hello, and welcome to today's presentation on the new hauled water update provided by the North Carolina Department of Insurance, Office of State Fire Marshal. In today's presentation, we're going to provide an overview of the recent changes in the hauled water program used on a ratings inspection. As we all know, change is inevitable. In preparation for this new program, there was a comparison study completed taking water hauls across the entire state in all regions and comparing them to the new calculator. In doing so, the results were 13% of the flows actually had a decrease in credit 50 GPM up to 250 GPM. However, 87% of the flows actually saw an increase from 50 GPM up to 400 GPM. The overall change in the fire department score ranged from losing 0.40 points to increasing 2.48 points. It is important to note that this is the first major update to the hauled water program since the North Carolina Department of Insurance Office of State Fire Marshal began conducting ISO inspections in the state of North Carolina. It is important to remember what the hauled water requirements are. A department must be able to establish a 250 GPM flow within 5 minutes of the first arriving engine. 10 minutes after the initial 250 GPM flow is established, the calculator will determine the sustainable 2-hour flow rate for that specific flow. All of this is based off of the apparatus responding, their travel time and distance, and dump and fill times. Here's a review of the way alternate water can be delivered. We are now able to grade you on a nursing operation, drop tank operations, as well as long hose lays. We will now discuss automatic aid training and how it affects the hauled water program. Automatic aid training does play a factor in the overall results of the hauled water calculator. Remember, for maximum credit, 4 quarterly 3-hour automatic aid trainings should take place within the last 12 months prior to your inspection. No training beyond the time that you are notified of your inspection will be applicable. They should always be a fire-related topic. It should be with all automatic aid departments who respond on first alarm. Not all training sessions have to be hauled water related, but anything less than 12 hours per automatic aid department can be prorated. Information needed to help calculate the credible GPMs for a particular flow is as follows. We will need dump times for each first alarm apparatus, direct fill from a hydrant, a fill time utilizing an engine, also the GPM rate of what the particular tanker can provide in a nursing operation. Let's now discuss what has changed in the process. The changes in how the fire scene setup is conducted is as follows. There is now a maximum of 6 personnel that can be utilized. We no longer drive in 200 feet. You will start from a static position. The time will start when personnel exit the apparatus. Time stops when the 250 GPM flow is established from the drop tank. No matter how fast you do it, the setup time will default to 5 minutes. You no longer need to utilize multiple drop tanks in this setup. And a reminder, junior firefighters should not participate in this evolution. The ability to video your fire scene setup is now acceptable if the department has been graded on an alternate water inspection prior to now. It should always be okayed with the inspector in advance of the site visit. The video should capture exiting of the apparatus, which would be the start time, the deploying of a single drop tank, the deploying of a 2.5-inch line with a smooth bore 1 1/8 tip, the switch over from drop tank to onboard water back to drop tank without interruption, and always proper PPE should be worn by all participating members. In the previous hauled water calculation, the department was graded on a one-size-fits-all type concept. We are now able to grade a department on true water supply delivery for the theoretical flow provided. The calculator will now accept second alarm apparatus if there is a response protocol in place and they can arrive within the allotted time frame. The new calculator also no longer stacks tankers at either the fill site or the dump site, so multiple fill sites are no longer necessary. There is no need to capture the size of the drop tanks or measure residual water left in the drop tank at the conclusion of the evolution. In the new calculator, if a tanker were to travel much more than 11.5 miles from their starting location to the theoretical flow, they will likely not help increase the flow rate for that particular flow. Remember, the flow rate is calculated based on what can be obtained within 15 minutes of the first arriving engine. The speed in which the distance is measured from their starting location to the theoretical flow given is 35 miles per hour. As a department, if you choose to utilize a nursing operation on any of your particular flows, there may be a need to collect the offload rates for those tankers for that particular flow. Another change is we no longer collect fill site setup times for any operation. This new calculator, unlike the old calculator, looks at staffing. Just a refresher on the difference between on-duty versus on-call staffing. On-duty means scheduled to be at the fire station, ready to respond. On-call means not at the fire station, ready to respond, and may have to come from a remote location to pick up apparatus. The staffing isn't department specific, but is specific for each apparatus that is on the first alarm. We need to gather the staffing of the fire scene engines, tankers and/or tenders, and fill site apparatus. If at any time that apparatus isn't staffed, it will automatically default to on-call response. So in the instance an apparatus isn't staffed under normal circumstances 24 hours per day, the on-duty status will default to on-call. The response time for a particular apparatus will then increase 4 minutes and 36 seconds for that particular apparatus. As mentioned in the earlier slide, as to the changes in the new hauled water calculator, second alarm apparatus may be added. It can be added to the hauled water calculator only if a dispatch protocol is in place. More likely than not, it will not arrive within the allotted time frame to increase the GPM flow. On duty and on call status is also needed for these particular apparatus, and an additional 6 minutes is added to their travel time due to the second alarm notification. The way in which the dump time is collected has also changed. Start time will come from when the apparatus is in a static position and the dump valve is opened completely. The stop time will take place when the tank has been emptied. The new calculator will add 1 minute for positioning the truck, etc. The way the fill time is collected has also changed. Time will start when the hydrant is opened and the line is charged. The stop time will take place when the tank is full and overflowing. The new calculator will then add 1 minute for positioning the truck, etc. As most of you are aware, we have done a tremendous job in obtaining dump and fill times for multiple apparatus across the state. In the event of a single new apparatus being added to a fleet or a small number of apparatus being added to a response, we can reference the default times for those particular trucks. The calculator will still add 1 minute for positioning the truck, etc. If you have any questions about the default times or would like to challenge the default time against actual times, please have that conversation with your assigned inspector. The previous hauled water calculator did not allow for changing methods of operation based on a particular flow. The new calculator will allow a department to utilize a nursing operation for water delivery. But in doing so, we would need to calculate the nurse rate GPMs for the apparatus on first alarm. The equipment needed to obtain this information is one ground mount deck gun, an 1 3/4 inch tip, 3-inch hose, or the hose size that all departments utilize on first alarm, and an inline pitot gauge. In calculating nurse rate GPMs, the apparatus should start from a static position and establish a flow. The driver operator should then max out his tank to pump flow rate. At that point, you should obtain a pitot reading from the ground mount deck gun and 1 3/4 inch tip utilizing a pitot gauge. Then calculate the flow rate GPM based off of that reading. That will be the offload nurse rate GPM for that particular apparatus. In the example given here, the pitot PSI was 50 PSI through an 1 3/4 inch tip. So the offload GPM flow rate for that particular apparatus would be 406 GPM. We will now provide you a couple of examples on how to collect the fire scene setup through video. This is drone footage provided to a ratings inspector showing the department's fire scene setup. As you can see, the apparatus is at a static position, no longer having to travel in 200 feet. All of the personnel involved in this setup exited the apparatus, that is when time started. Proper PPE is being worn by all participants, including a helmet with chin strap, traffic vest, bunker pants, and gloves. The department is deploying a single drop tank, which is all that is needed, as well as the 100 feet of 2.5 inch hose with a 1 1/8 tip. Just as a review, the maximum number of personnel you can utilize in this evolution is a total of 6. Junior firefighters should not make up any of that head count. This is more of a wide angle shot or an overview of the scene setup. As you can tell, the tanker is offloading into the single drop tank. The 2.5 inch line is being charged, and time will stop once a sustained 250 GPM flow is established. Remember, no matter how fast you do it, the new calculator will automatically take your time to 5 minutes. Now we will see the ground footage from the same fire scene setup as in the previous video. Remember, time starts when personnel exit the apparatus from a static position. You get a better view here of the actual setup and PPE worn by each individual. Again, the department should only utilize a maximum number of 6 personnel, and those videoing the setup do not count towards those 6. A single drop tank setup is all that is needed, and that is all that is demonstrated in this video. Water is now filling the drop tank. You see the driver operator opening up the master intake valve to establish a prime. Once the prime is established, the driver operator should charge the appropriate 2.5-inch discharge at approximately 62 psi minimum to obtain a 250 GPM flow through a 1 1/8 inch nozzle. At that point, time will have ended. The video should then show the operator opening his tank to pump valve completely, then closing his master intake valve either internally or externally, like shown, without interrupting the flow. The person videoing should then make their way to the end of the hose line to capture the size tip that is being utilized. That will be the conclusion of the video requirements.